Hi, everyone, and welcome to episode 8 of the podcast. I really had to think about what episode, I actually had to look up what episode it was because in my head I had done 5 episodes. And then it turned out I had done 7. So that just goes to show how bad our brains are to show us how good we are at something and how much we do something. Our brains always tell us that we do less than we actually do. So my brain had left 2 episodes out completely. Anyway, episode 8. So what always happens with my episodes is that I kind of have a plan for what I want to talk about. And then something happens in my life and I'm like, no, I need to talk about this. So I want to start out with saying that I am absolutely knackered. I had 3 hours sleep because I had to take my daughter who was visiting here in Spain to the airport this morning. She had to be there at 4, so I had to get up 3:15. A little side note, I took her to Malaga airport, and when we got there, it turns out the football club Malaga had won something. I'm not into football, I don't know. They were coming back from Barcelona. So apart from me, my daughter, and our travelers, there was also 5,000 football fans, which was very disconcerting, at 4 o'clock in the morning and very confusing. But anyways, that was that. You could then ask yourself, okay, so if you had to get up that early, why didn't you go to bed early? You always talk about how important sleep is. Yes, but because it was her last night with us, I went out with my ex-husband and his new wife and then my daughter. And we went to this place that I recommended by the beach, which is amazing. But for some reason, the only thing they didn't register to bring us, the waiters, you tell them what you want and then they write it down. And my order, they just didn't get. So I ordered a plant-based burger because I'm plant-based. And we asked for it 3 times. And when everybody had eaten, all the plates were clear, they brought me a beef burger. So I just ended up not eating that last night. It was like midnight by then. So obviously got home at past midnight and then up 3:15. I slept 3 hours. Okay, fair enough. But the reason I wanted to tell you this is because last night my ex-husband was telling me about how stressed he is around his job. He had a hip operation, I think, did he say 2.5 or 3 months ago, and is still not back to work because he's kind of like this caretaker of like a big private organization, and there's a lot of movement and a lot of quite hard work involved. So he can't actually work until his hip is fine, which is okay. The problem is that he made himself so indispensable that they haven't left him alone since the day he was operated, and he was lying in the hospital bed, like after, they smashed his femur head out, and put something titanium in instead. And he was lying in his hospital bed, and these people from this organization, who seem pretty useless to me, they kept emailing him and texting him, and this has been going on for 3 months. They would like literally send him a picture of their private swimming pool, but the glass around it would not have been cleaned properly after the rain. So they would send him pictures of that and then ask him to sort it out. And he was so tired of it because physically he can't really do anything. So he has to be like constantly finding people that can do stuff and putting it in contact. So he's like this middleman, and he hasn't had a break apart. Despite being off, having sick leave, for about 3 months, he has not literally had a brain break from his work. And when he goes back, which is probably another month, he's going to be so fed up with his job. He's just going to not want to be there at all, which is a shame, right? So I said to him, like, this reminds me so much when I had the clinic here in Spain with my business partner, we had an emergency phone. We were only on call. We didn't have back then an emergency hospital you could refer your patients to. Like if somebody was sick, they would call you emergency mobile, and either me or my business partner would have to go in and see the dogs. So at that point, the smartphones came out and WhatsApp existed. And having I think I had the smartphone for a week because the WhatsApp messages that would arrive at all times, day and night, about absolutely stupid, useless things like anal glands and can you remember when I vaccinated my dog, or how much is a nail clip, and just like so many questions that I could not answer from my home, but they would come in on my mobile, which I had on me. So I think I kept the mobile for myself, and then we bought like a really cheap flip phone that you couldn't do messaging with because we did not want people to message us. It was crazy. Like people would not respect that you were watching a movie or whatever, and I would just see the phone flashing, and I felt I had to look at it. I had to be there for the people in case it was a real emergency, which might have been 1 out of the 50 messages I got. So you cannot ask people to respect your time. You cannot ask people to know that you don't really want to do something if you don't ask them. Like if you're not told anybody, if you're just like, here's my phone number, here's my email, and I'm available 24/7, people are going to take advantage of it. You cannot account for people knowing what you are feeling and thinking about this phone or this email coming in and whether you want to deal with it or not. It's not on them. That is on you. So I said to him, they might not like it. They might get fed up with you, but you'll just have to say, sorry, I'm off, and just maybe answer at specific hours, like decide some hours you wanna do it for, because this sounds insane. You could not, they were like calling him as well, you know, in the middle of him having a family dinner and just asking about stupid stuff like duplicate of a key, I don't know, all sorts. And just reminded me so much of my own situation with the animals, where people think something is urgent, but it actually isn't, and they treat you like you should fix it straight away. And that is a lack of boundary. So I had to set a boundary last week. I have been doing a copywriting course, which means that my posts and emails resonate more with people because I'm learning kind of like writing from the heart. I'm not holding back, and I really say what I mean now. No, I've been taught to be. I've learned to get braver and using my own language, which resonates a lot more with people, which is very good. But it can also be negative, right? Because you resonate with a lot of people that you don't know, that have different culture, background, education, opinions than I have, which means that they will perceive whatever I write in however the way they want to do it. So I post on LinkedIn, on Instagram, and then Instagram posts automatically to Facebook. So those are 2 platforms. I have my email list and I have this podcast now, but I also was kind of doing stuff on TikTok. So whenever I had a video, I would put it on because I thought, okay, that might be vets, young vets maybe watching it. That'll be okay. Until I did a post last week, that was where I think I was inspired by a post on LinkedIn that talked about somebody complaining about £500 for a dental on a hamster, and that had been published in BBC, and it was a big uproar. Oh my God, vets charge so much. And it just like, these things annoy me so much because personally, for me, a dental in I would not know what to do with a hamster. I mean, what anesthesia do they need? How much? How do you keep this little thing alive? What instruments would you have to use? You would have to buy special instruments for the little thing, right? I don't know. So to me, that's a specialty. That is exotic medicine. So to me, £500, that's whether the owner wants to pay it or not. But you know, if they want to spend 500 on a hamster, but the vet should surely charge for that service, which is a specialty, right? So I just wrote something along the lines of, why do vets get what did I write? No, I said like, it's very sad when people cannot afford the best treatment for their pets, right? Because if people, you all know that if somebody cannot afford a best treatment, oh, you need a CT scanner, you should probably have these expensive antibiotics, whatever. If they can't do that, if the animal's suffering, we can give them something for the pain. And if the owners don't have the money to treat or diagnose a very severe, complicated disease, then we can euthanize the animal, right? But they might not always have the money for the best treatment, and that is sad. So it makes us sad as well. I would love to be like Dr. House and just throw all sorts of diagnostics at my patient, but it's often not possible. But that's not my fault, right? That is the person in front of me. It's quote unquote their fault. And I'm not saying that they're a bad person for not having the money, but it is under no circumstances my fault if they can't afford my services. And I said, so I wrote a post and I said, so if your house is flooded because the washing machine broke and you have to bring out an emergency plumber, it's very expensive. It's gonna bring your finances back, but it's not the plumber's fault that this happened to you. Or if your livelihood is a car and you really stress over if the car breaks down, because if you don't have a car, you can't go to work, and how you're gonna pay for your kids or whatever, but you don't put that responsibility on the mechanics. You understand that it's a service and you have to pay this, right? So I wrote something along those lines. Unfortunately, on TikTok, a lot of my followers happen to not be vets. So they were really angry with this comparison and said, like, I was a parent, I was like comparing their pets to washing machines and a hamster's a toaster. And I don't know, they just went off the rails. And on TikTok, I don't know how to block and delete. And also it was really difficult for me to give reasonable, long kind of like explanations and answers to kind of educate these owners. And by the time I had like 4,000 comments or something, I was like, I'm just going to shut down my TikTok account, because I cannot see any vets commenting here, and I know my post and the inspiration I put out in the universe is for vets. It's not for the owners. Like, somebody else can educate the owners. I am just trying to be here to help the vets and give you guys arguments for when somebody is telling you like you're too expensive and it's your fault that the pet is going to die. So give you some ammunition, give you some arguments that you can use, no, so you don't feel guilty. And I could have sat there for hours and tried to defend myself on TikTok. And I just decided to delete the account because I can't see anything coming out of this. You know, vets are not, it doesn't seem to be reaching vets. And I don't need all these crazy people that have nothing else to do than to be keyboard warriors to sit here and throw shit at me. So I just closed the account. A few times, I think on Instagram, it hasn't happened to me on LinkedIn. So on LinkedIn, people are pretty good at just saying, they say their opinion, but they're being respectful, right? They might have a different opinion. We can agree to disagree. And then we could just kind of like chat a bit around. Everybody just put their points across, and it's always civil. And on Instagram, I've just had crazy people saying stuff that has nothing to do with anything, like they want to marry me. Thank you. And I just delete those comments. I can hide them, I can block them, and that's fine. So I have learned through my having my own clinic to set very firm boundaries. Like, I don't want to have to sit and deal with angry people not liking me in my own home, right? So sitting there on my phone and then having like comments I don't like, and I don't have to see them if I don't want to. Just like my ex-husband doesn't have to deal with people that think that the windows by the private swimming pool should have been cleaned better when he's off sick. It's something we choose to do. And it's the same when you have a pet owner that says something to you or asks something from you that you don't like. You have your right to set a boundary. Like, I just saw on Instagram, there's an account called Vet Confessionals, I think, and there was somebody wrote, you can be anonymous and then you can just put out whatever you're thinking. And it was someone saying, I've been in this for 32 years and I'm so fed up. I just want to go and fill bags, you know, like be one of those service ones in the supermarket that put things in your bags for you, because he was so tired of the clients. But the reason you become tired of the clients is when you don't set firm boundaries and you just let it come to you and you're just being reactive. And the more reactive you get and the more time you don't allow yourself to have off, the more your nervous system is going to get triggered by all these emergencies that people think they have. And every time a client comes in and says something to you like, oh, the typical one, dog comes in with diarrhea, and now we know that antibiotics are not good for diarrhea, although in old days, apparently everybody was giving everybody antibiotics. So I would say, no, your dog doesn't need antibiotics. He's not septic. He's fine himself. He just needs whatever. And then the client might be, but I always get on, oh no, you want to hear this one? So I had one the other week and the woman said, well, this is not like in France, because I used to live in France and they would always give me antibiotics for the diarrhea. And I was like, okay, great, you know, but that doesn't mean that I felt blackmailed into giving this woman diarrhea. And we joked a bit about it afterwards, but that was it. I don't let it get to me. And I could tell it's a bit of a joke. To be honest, I turned around and then I said under my breath to my kennel assistant, she should just give it a croissant, then if France is so good. I said something silly just to get it out of my system. But I don't let it get to me. And you let it get to you when you let it get to you. You don't have to. Like, you can, in your brain, you can block and delete. And if you have clients that you honestly, they're just wearing you down and for some reason your chemistry is not right, or they're just idiots, like, you can fire them if it's your own clinic or you have some sort of seniority in your practice, and you can tell them, or you can get your manager to fire them and say, don't come back because you just like a drain to my vets. Or you can ask, like, I do not want to see this person. You should let you should let someone else see them because I can't. That actually happened to one of my clients who refused to go and see a client. She's a vet, and it was a horse in this case. And the woman was always horrible, and she's like, I don't have to deal with this person. You can do it. And she let the practice manager, the senior vet, go, because she has learned to set boundaries now, and she just doesn't want to deal with this woman. She said, why should I deal with this very, very unreasonable person, right? So you can learn to set boundaries. And if you have to face them because maybe it's the first time, you actually don't know who they are, or there's nobody else that can see them, you can learn to not interiorize what they're telling you. And you don't have to let them blackmail you into doing something that you don't want them to do. Because the getting stressed and getting worn out and getting just burned out from people is when you let them get to you and you don't either in live block, delete, fire them, or internally you don't block, free, delete, or fire them, right? You're letting what they say get to you instead of just like, yeah, whatever goes over my head, I'm saying no. You can get mad, you can go somewhere else, I don't care. It takes a lot of work to get that, because I think a lot of us who are carers, we tend to have very people pleasing tendencies. So we think that something has gone wrong, and we get like very, I personally used to get very worked up inside if I said something and the clients didn't like it, or they ended up at the, complaining about me because I did or said something they didn't like, or I refused to do something. I remember as well when I had my clinic, and finally, a hospital opened up in the area that was going to be open 24/7. I just told everybody, you know what? We are going to not have a mobile phone anymore. So we're going to be closed from Saturday midday. We open again Monday. Any nights, any weekends, this is the number you need to call, and you need to drive. And it was about a 40-minute drive to get to the hospital, because me and my other vet, we're going to be off. And that was such a relief for us. And I did get a bit of a shitstorm from a very few people, because the rest understood that it was crazy the life we were living. Like, one of us was just never off, right? And it was to get it to have to go in at night and then work next day. It was like inhuman. It was one of the things that burnt me out. But there was one client that was just like, yeah, but I don't want to have to drive. And then if my dog has got run over or it's getting poisoned, and then I have to drive for 40 minutes, going to die, and it's your fault, And I was just like, sorry, no, I'm not having that. And, I fired him there and then he came back and apologized. I think he brought us coffee. And then I forgave him because he just had a hissy moment, right? But it's on you to set those boundaries, and you cannot let people walk all over you, keep asking favors you don't want to do, be in your face when you don't want them, contacting you out of hours. That is you letting them do it, and then the burnout is on you. It's not on them. Like, be strong. Don't try to please everybody. Set your boundaries and just be a bit like, I don't really care what people think about me. I know my values. I know my limits. I know my boundaries. And then you can then be happy in this profession, because what value is it for everybody else who's a really nice, like say 95% of people that don't abuse your services, that don't complain about the prices, that don't ask you to give antibiotics for silly things, like, or they're going to lose you if you burn out and leave the profession or go somewhere else because of the 5% that are basically idiots, right? So don't let them get you. Set your boundaries, and just respect yourself first, right? Put the oxygen mask on yourself first, and then you can help others. But don't do it from this place like, I have to, I should, I need to. Do it from where you know where your boundaries are and what your values are, and live in integrity, right? But without trying to please everybody. Have a lovely week, everyone.